When it comes to the jobs in Final Fantasy Tactics, there are a lot of things to consider. What are their growths? What type of equipment can they use? What abilities are they good with? Etc. However, to understand exactly how you're going to want to build some of these jobs, you need to have a good understanding of just how useful the ability set that they're stuck with per the rules of the game is actually going to be, how it's going to perform for them on the field of battle. And today, that is exactly what we're going to be ranking with a classic FFT The Evilise Chronicles tier list. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my ongoing coverage of the tactics and strategy RPG genre, including things like, of course, the GOAT itself, Final Fantasy Tactics, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, I would highly recommend that you keep an eye on my Patreon. Link to that is in the description, as by the end of this week, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, there's going to be some major changes and announcements about how Patreon is going to become a much better deal for all of you who decide to support me directly, monetarily, which is a huge part of the reason that this channel continues to exist. So keep an eye on that. Thank you for those of you who decided to check it out. And now, what are we doing here today? So, people have been asking me for this for a long time. Can we actually do a tier list and a discussion of all of the actual action skills that are assigned to each job in FFT? The, generic jobs, obviously, the unique jobs are generally speaking very strong across the board. We could do a separate tier list ranking all of those if you guys decide that you want to see that. But for right now, we're going to be talking about the generic jobs and specifically how useful these abilities are, obviously, in combat, because that's the only place that you can use them. We're not looking at what gear a job can use. We're not looking at what growths a job has. And we're not looking at other skills like reaction skills or support skills or the like, because those can be swapped around to anybody. But each job that we're going to be discussing here today is forced, for one of its two action skills that you can assign it, to use the skill that is its skill, right? Squire must use Fundaments. Chemist must use items, that type of thing. So since they are stuck with those, it's worthwhile to discuss them when you're figuring out what your base job for a character is going to be, because it's going to be a huge part of their kit. But we'll be starting off with Squire, basic S through D tier. Let's begin. So Squire has Fundaments, and Fundaments, as we know, is very basic. Is it good for grinding? Yes. Focus is very nice to just be able to have a very quick and easy to use skill. As I was saying, Focus is a very quick and easy to use skill that will stack up XP and JP very quickly, and that is very valuable. However, is it the most efficient ability to be using for a combat sense? Potentially, depending. It is nice to be able to stack up a whole bunch of attack very, very quickly, but it's also not the most efficient thing that you could be doing with one of your two ability skills. And unfortunately, the other skills that come with Fundaments are not particularly great. Rush and Salve both fall off extremely quickly and are like barely even useful when you do have them in the first place, and Throwstone gets little bits of chip damage in, but again also falls off very, very quickly. As a result, Fundaments is really only held up in this list by Focus, and even then I don't think it's a particularly great skill compared to a lot of the other things that we're going to be discussing here. Because again, yeah, grinding is great, but you need to actually be able to finish off the enemy, and you can do that a lot more quickly with other skills, either indirectly or directly. So I think we're going to be putting the Fundaments skill from Squire solidly in C tier. Moving on to Chemist. Now this is an interesting one because I am a huge proponent of Chemist. A lot of you know this, a lot of you dog on me for that, but that's okay. You can be wrong, it's fine, because I'm right, items are great. So, Chemist's items are basically always going to be useful, and beyond the niche status effect healing ones, just your basic potions, elixirs, ethers, and phoenix downs are going to be a staple of any healthy team from the beginning to the end of the game. As such, I'm going to say that Chemist is very solidly in A tier. It's not going to let you kill the enemy, really, unless you are doing some like crazy zombification, doing damage through healing type of strat, but it will let you keep your damage dealers and your direct other support units alive. Very important, very valuable, especially making sure that no one's going to turn into a crystal by, having their time run down and then poof, they're gone. Their soul is now yours to devour. Very solid A tier job as far as its initial skill set is concerned. I like it a lot. I always have a Chemist on hand in some form or fashion. Knight. Knight is a very interesting one because you're not often using Arts of War with Knight as its primary role. Usually, if you're running a Knight, it's because they're doing their direct attacking, blocking, tanking damage, etc. But it can become a pretty cool utility piece, especially if you're using it with range, or if you just really need to be able to cripple a certain type of enemy in certain situations. Being able to rend shields and swords is very good, especially if you're fighting special enemies that have like holy sword techniques or are reliant on having some sort of weapon type or are just scary physical attackers or dodgy. That's very solid. Being able to rend speed and power, especially, if you're like dual wielding or something like that, can be devastating to an enemy that you can't necessarily kill right off the bat. As such, I think Arts of War is going to go solidly in the middle. Is it the best action skill that you're going to have? No, but you will always be able to find some sort of a use for it, and so I think it makes it a very solid middle ground. Archer. Now, this is a very interesting one because it's our first instance of a skill that is just one thing, but stronger and stronger the higher tier of it that you're using with aim. In the past, aim was very bad. The damage increase was not worth it once you got to the level of charge time required to actually get a big damage boost because it would take so long to cast, and more likely than not, the enemy would either be dead from other abilities or would just move out of range, and now you're missing your attack. Now though, the Evilise Chronicles has made aim a lot better. Is it top tier by any means? No. But if you watched a raw damage roll for a character, aim's a pretty nice addition to have. Just the amount of raw damage output that you can put on something, especially if you're using like a big heavy weapon like an axe and you can really roll high on that to get devastating results, I think makes it a very solid B tier. Jobs that just want to be dealing damage, knights, monks, ninjas, potentially, Dragoons, maybe, they have jump, but yeah, maybe there's some sort of use case. They're really going to enjoy being able to just stack that damage output, and aim is going to let them do it much more efficiently. So I think now with its changes in TIC, it's a very solid B tier ability that will be good in a few different spots. Now, Black Mage with Black Magic, I mean, how could you say this is anything other than A tier? The main issue with Black Magic is it is very limited. You're primarily using your 4 levels of Fire, Thunder, and Blizzard, right? You have Toad, you have Death, you have Flare, you have Poison. Sure. Not always or really ever going to have major use cases for those on Black Mage specifically. Things like Calculator, being able to Toad spam or Death spam, obviously that's a very different use case, but the majority of the time you're just going to be nuking stuff with magic. And the majority of the time, that is more than good enough. Doing massive damage to a single target with Flare, hitting a huge AoE, potentially with elemental weaknesses in play, with your Thunder, Fire, and Blizzard magic, is extremely strong, but it's also a little one note if you compare it to something like, say, Summoner, that can do the AoE damage, but can also do AoE support and has more elements in play than Black Mage can ever have. So for just the skill alone, don't think I can push it any higher than A tier, but it is a very strong A tier, no doubt. Now, White Mage. White Mage is one that, much like the class itself or the job itself, doesn't quite live up to the hype of Black Magic, and unfortunately, it's really not as good as Chemist's items either, because of the charge time, the MP requirements, and the fact that very often, unless you have good compatibility and good faith scores, it's just not going to be as efficient healing as something like an X potion will be for most of the game, right? You have the AoE bonus and everything, and you can do some other supporty type options, but White Magic is never my go-to for a mage. I'd rather be doing stuff to damage or disable the enemy if possible, so I think this is going to be solidly in B tier. It's not bad, and there will be times that you're very happy to have some Cure Magic on hand, or a Raise, or again, even like Holy if you need to nuke something, but there's better ways to go about your mass healing, I would say. Now, Monk. Monk is probably going to be, as it pretty much always is, our first S-tier skill with martial arts. Martial arts are so nice because they have that versatility, right? You can do AoE damage, you can do ranged damage, you can do long-range damage with things like Shockwave, you can res, you can heal HP and MP in an AoE, and a lot more. You can do pretty much anything that you need. Purification, even. Remove status effects. Like, Monk can do it all just with martial arts. And that means that any job that you need to have that level of versatility can do anything with martial arts. Even if you don't have Brawler equipped, which we're not really discussing because again, we're talking action skills. But even if you don't have Brawler equipped, just having a Knight, say, with martial arts so they can res, heal, remove status effects, and get chip damage at range, it's really strong, dude. It's really good. And if you're talking just having the ability to do a bunch of different things and do most of it pretty well, there's limitations due to like height discrepancies and again, less damage or healing if you're not using Brawler and yada, yada, yada. But just having that baseline capability is more than a lot of these particular jobs and their action skills can say. And so I think it belongs in S tier. Maybe some people are going to argue it should be lower, but I really think that martial arts is extremely strong. Now, Thief. This is, man, I feel like Thief is in a superposition between S and D. Because it's a meta progression thing, right? Yes, sometimes with Steel, you're going to be able to yank a really strong sword off of a boss and completely cripple their ability to do anything to you. That's not most fights, though. Most fights, there's not going to be stuff that's that worthwhile to try and steal with a dedicated Thief when you could just outright disable or kill that enemy unit. That means there are certain fights where a Thief is basically vital, especially if you're not trying to like break gear but want to take it for yourself, and then other times where you basically never want to use it. Yeah, you can use Charm sometimes, but again, as far as status effects are concerned, that's a very weak one. The enemy is still active. The Charm can be broken very easily by damage. It will wear off anyway. You can't control what they're doing. They're still going to be unpredictable. I'd rather use other status effects. Like if I'm trying to use a Thief to disable something with Charm, I'd rather just have a Mystic and cast actual disable on it or petrification or something. Like, you see what I'm saying? So as far as Steel is concerned as an action skill, I think it's going to go solidly in D tier. It might be our only D tier on this list, honestly, because everything else has some sort of a use case. Even Mediator, which famously I'm much more down on than shockingly a bunch of you are, has way more play as far as its actual skill is concerned than Steel does to me. So Thief is going to be in D tier, except for the superposition where it winds up becoming S tier because you're in a boss fight where you can steal valuable gear. Now, we mentioned it before, but Mystic. Mystic, I think, as far as a set of actions that you can take, I think Mystic is probably going to be in A. And if we want to have, like, ranking of, like, high A to low A and things like that, it would probably be the lowest of A. It'll be, like, the gatekeeper for A, if I had to say. Like, you have to surpass Mystic's capability to be considered A tier or higher. But Mystic is very capable, especially with its actual skills. I'm always very high on the job in general, but with its skills alone, you have Silence, Brave, Faith, Petrification, Berserk, I think, like, Poison, and, like, all sorts of other fun stuff. Like, any good status effect that you can think of, Mystic pretty much has available to it. And things like Petrification that will literally just instantly take something out of the fight so long as it's not resistant to it, and there's not some ability to remove stone on the enemy team, which is more rare than you might think unless you're fighting like a group of monks. That's really good, man. Picking something and saying bye-bye is extremely strong. Having the ability to drain HP and MP, it's a really good skill to have on any mage as a backup option in case your damage or your healing or your other support options aren't what you need in that moment. It's very versatile. It's very strong. I think it's definitely an A-tier set of spells and an A-tier action skill. Time Mage. Time Mage is going right near the top. I'm not going to say it's above Black Mage necessarily because damage is usually better than support, but just haste. Just haste alone with Time Magic is a game changer. Making, potentially, if you're able to get the right formation at the beginning of the match or the map and you like don't have the weird height discrepancies and whatever, having your entire party be just faster than the enemy from like turn 1 is such an insane boon. And it casts so quickly and is so cheap, you can, with smart positioning, keep that buff going in perpetuity and just outrun the enemy. The faster you are, the more damage you can deal, the more quickly you're going to be able to disable them, and the faster you're going to move on to the next map. Time Mage allows you to do that. And beyond that, you still have Slow and Stop and Gravity and Graviga and Meteor if you have a big need for AoE damage. Niche options like Reflect and Levitate can occasionally be useful, but the core aspect is those time actual like CT count manipulation abilities. Stop. Awesome. Phenomenal. Kind of equivalent to Petrify. Not as permanent, but still very good. It's just a very, very strong set of spells that, again, any mage is going to be happy to have, or even some non-mages. Like, again, a knight with a decent robe and some time magic can be a great support piece to buff up the team before you get into melee and start slapping with a sword. Like, it's just a very nice set of spells to have, and I think will empower any team that you have the time mage or the unit that's using time magic in. Very good stuff. Geomancer. Geomancer is an interesting one. I know I'm very much higher on Geomancer than a lot of people are. But I think Geomancer is going to go low B tier. The fact that Geomancer lets you do pretty decent, not like amazing, but if you build into it, pretty decent magic damage instantly for free at long range, and then have that hit in an AoE and potentially apply status effects is very good. It can be a little unreliable. You know, you're not always going to be able to guarantee that you want to get the status effect that you need because of just whatever terrain it is that you happen to be standing on. But Geomancy gives you so much versatility. Again, I love versatility. It's very important to just chip away. Completely neutering, sometimes, very strong enemies through options like Disable. And have a unit that can be both applicable in range and melee, which is not always the case in this game, and be decent at both sides of that. If an enemy's weak and running away, potentially going to get healed, popping them with a Tangle Vine is very satisfying. And because there's no issues with like height and all that, like you would have with an archer or anything, or like just distance that you can hit, like with black magic, it lets you have a little bit more of an ability to clean up enemies that might otherwise continue to cause problems for you. Is it ever going to be like the ideal thing to have? No, I don't think so. And you can make much stronger, specifically focused builds, but it's always going to do work. And I love that about it. Moving on to Summoner, though, with Summon Magic, and this is going to be our second S tier. S is for Summoner. Summoners, now more than ever, are insanely strong. They've always been very, very good. But because, again, of the reduced charge times of everything pretty much across the board in the Evil East Chronicles, it is so much easier to hit with the big summons. Your Odins, your Bahamets, not your Titans, he's fairly little, but like your Leviathans even get Cyclops and Fairy and Sylph to cast, or Fairy and Sylph are the same thing, two different names for the same spell. My brain played too many different versions of this game, but you know what I mean. Having all of that versatility in a huge AoE, as well as having your Shivas and your Ifrits and your Ramas and your Titans to deal very quick, smaller chunks of damage, but across a big area of effect. Summon Magic is just kind of super Black Mage in a lot of ways. You don't have dedicated single target damage like you do with Flare, but you don't really need it either with how much raw damage output you're going to be dropping on the entire enemy team. Plus, then you have a little bit of healing. You've got Golem to provide defense. It is an extremely strong set of spells, and I think absolutely belongs in S tier. Now, Dragoon with Jump. Oh, this is an interesting one, and I always get in trouble with Dragoon because as much as I love Dragoons, I think they're super cool, and they were my favorite job when I was a kid. Jump is a fairly lackluster skill overall. It's basically aim, but with longer range, but takes you off the board, and it takes a bit longer to trigger than aim does. And whereas aim actually has the benefit of using your weapons, so you can have weapons that have negative status effects on them, like Spellbinders, for example, for Ninja can disable, as just one example. Elemental Affinities, you can dual wield or double hand or have other ways to boost that damage. Jump is more stagnant. It just uses the stats of your gear and your character, and that's that. And due to the fact that it tends to take longer to drop now than aim does, it's going to have less overall damage, in my opinion, over multiple turns. I've not done direct damage testing of this, so if there are hard numbers that disprove this, then fair enough. But from my time with the game, my experience with it, and my understanding of how these skills work, jump is generally going to be worse than aim for most situations now. To say nothing of the fact that Dragoons are tanky characters. They're knights, but with spears, basically. And people always have that argument that they use with me where it's like, well, but it takes you off the board, so it prevents you from taking damage. True. It also means that you have one less frontline tank character to potentially be gumming up the works and keeping the enemy away from your squishies, which is not what you want. That is the opposite of what you want. As such, I think jump is pretty mediocre. It's not going to be C tier, I don't think, because it can deal really good damage output, and if you build around it, it can make for a pretty nasty, damaging character, but it's so limited. There's just better options, so I think it's going to be low B tier, the gatekeeper of B tier, if you will. Now, Mediator. Mediator is a very interesting one, or Orator, whichever you prefer. I still, to this day, I had a comment about this earlier today. Gun to my head, I could not tell you right now what the new name for this job is. Like, what they updated for War of the Lions and Evil East Chronicles name of this job is. It's Orator or it's Mediator. I don't know. One of them is from the OG, one of them isn't. I'm sorry, I will always flip-flop on these. I don't know why, it's just stuck in my head that way. Mediator's specific set of skills in its talk command, or its speechcraft command, they're weird. People always go to things like Entice, right, where you can recruit an enemy from the enemy team, and they become a guest, and they'll fight with you, and then you can recruit them afterwards, and that has a lot of power behind it, but we always talk about how the success rate of it is quite low. However, separating it from everything else that Mediator has, which is like generally mediocre stats and not very good innate skills and yada yada yada, you do have some options in there, like Mimic Darlavon to be able to put things to sleep, or the ability to raise and lower Brave and Faith, which can be very useful in certain scenarios with certain battles. Am I going to say that it's better than Dragoon with jump? Or is it high C tier? I'd rather have it over Dragoon, I think. That's rough. That might get me in trouble, but being able to sleep large groups of enemies is very potent and can set up very well for your other big damaging characters. I mean, hell, a Mediator putting things to sleep for a Dragoon to then jump on, there's a combo. Not terrible. Not the best, but not terrible. But there's a little bit more play going on with Speechcraft than there is with jump. And so even though it's not dealing direct damage, I think it's going to be better overall in a wider range of scenarios. Put it that way. I think that'll be the best way to elucidate you all as to my opinion. We'll say it that way. Moving on, though, before I get myself into any more trouble, we have Samurai, and the Samurai is going to be A tier. Is it better than Time Mage? No, I don't think so, because speed is king, but Samurai is really good. Iaido is very, very strong. The wide array of increasingly powerful AoE instant cast damaging abilities are very potent, especially if you're building into magic attack. Very, very strong for a Samurai. And then the fact that you can apply healing, protect and shell, haste and regen, etc. means that your Iaido skills, while not the widest scope of capabilities, are always going to have something that you can be doing with whoever it is that's using them. It's a great secondary skill for Black Mage, or any mage, really. It's very nice to have on melee characters since they're going to be in the thick of the fight anyway. It's going to get incidental or potentially very devastating damage in, heal up, and provide some support when you need it. It casts, again, instantly. It doesn't require any MP. It's just very, very potent. A little simple, but very potent. Now, Ninja, probably, well, I mean, you can come up with any number of tier lists as to why this would actually wind up applying, but Ninja, for throw, specifically, not dual wield, just throw, is going to be in C tier. It's going to be above Squire, but it's going to be in C tier. The issue with throw is it's kind of like an aim or a jump, really. You're doing one thing. It's just you have a wide variety of different types of gear that you can do that one thing with. And while it's nice for getting chip damage at range, being able to huck some useless gear, or maybe even swords or lances or whatever that you bought specifically for the purpose at the enemy, it's not going to be like devastatingly powerful unless you're throwing truly powerful, very rare and limited gear, in which case you're at the end game farming that stuff for no purpose other than to be able to throw it, basically. For the majority of the game, your throw options are not limited, but not very potent either. And the second you're able to close to melee range, you're never going to throw again, because you're just going to be slapping with dual weapons the entire time, right? It's very rare that I ever want to put throw on any other unit as well, because there's just better secondary options. If I had the ability to swap a ninja's primary skill for something else and then have a different secondary skill as well, like if I could put Arts of War and Aim, and obviously you can do that on like a knight, but you know, there's different stats and things that would apply if they were a ninja, all that type of fun stuff. But that would be choice, and I would take it every time over throw. Every time. So yeah, throw as it is, I'm not super impressed by. I never really have been. It's cool in concept, but it's not very effective. We're gonna move on. Bard with Bard Song. Bard, I think, is going to go in B. B is for Bard. D is not going to be for Dancer. Don't you worry about that. And it's going to go above White Mage. Bard is very potent with its Bard Song due to the prevality. Not entirely sure what I was going for there. The large array of buffs that you can apply across your entire party, we'll say it that way. That is very nice. Being able to buff speed, attack, magic, do some healing, whatever. Set your CT to 100 for everybody. Everybody, we'll talk about that, is extremely strong. The issue is some of those songs take quite a while to cast and aren't super efficient, and the success chances aren't always the best. So it's like, yeah, okay, you're technically hitting your entire party, but functionally you're only going to hit maybe a half to 66% of them most of the time, in my experience. So it can stack very well over the course of a map, but other support options are going to be directer, faster, and more guaranteed to succeed. And that's what I like to see more than anything. Taking the chance to roll the dice on a big AoE effect can be fun, and it can really pop off. But just knowing that you're going to be able to hit your 3 most important guys with haste periodically, like every couple of turns, guaranteed, no questions asked, and being able to time when that's going to happen is just going to be better a lot of the time. It really is. I like it. It's very solid, but it's not phenomenal either. Upper half of the tier list, but you know. Now, Dancer, I think, is going to be very solidly in A tier, just above Mystic. Same issues apply. Yes, now you're targeting the enemy and you're debuffing them, and that can be very powerful, and I find it more powerful than Bard across the board for the most part. Just being able to completely nerf enemy speed over a few turns in the match is very good. But again, it takes a while to cast, not always guaranteed to hit. You can do more direct things to target specific problem units and take them out of the fight, while the less problematic units can be picked off when you have the chance, right? That said, yeah, I mean, if you can get a Dancer rolling, or even 2 Dancers rolling, you can just cripple an enemy team with enough turns. You don't need that many anyway, so I do think it's better than Mystic. I do think it is an A-tier job that's worth using if you can get your hands on one at a reasonable pace. Definitely pretty solid. Now, should I have made a calculator tier for arithmetics? Probably. I probably should have. But last time I did that, people got all fussy about it, so I decided we're not going to mess with it this time. Arithmetics from calculator are just going to go at the top of S tier. I've talked about it before. The reason that calculator, or arithmetician, whatever, is such a busted job is because even if you're using an actual character in that actual job, and as such you have all the garbage stats and the like, all you need is 1 full party cast of Toad. And it's over, man. If you're on Black Mage or something that has really good magic attack and solid speed, 1 full enemy party cast of Flare, and they're just brutalized. Like, you just can't get around it. It is the single strongest ability set in the game. Much, much stronger if you separate it from calculator / arithmetician as well. There's just no arguing about it. Full party haste, full party heal, full party holy, full map holy if you've got your team set up to absorb it. Like, you can't put it anywhere else in S. It's just the killer. We're moving on. Now, Mime is kind of a weird one. Much like the Thief is in a superposition, the Mime is in a superposition of it's either the best thing or the worst thing, depending solely on what it is that you have going on the rest of your team. But given the fact that it can just mimic all the best stuff, even though it doesn't really have an active ability set, its ability is to mimic. It's the only thing it does. It's kind of weird to try and classify it, but I think it's going to go right below calculator / arithmetician. Just being able to be like, yeah, I want more spells. I want more Iaido from Samurai. I want more dances or more Bard Song or whatever. I mean, it's just a force multiplier, right? There's not much else to say about it. It's just take your best stuff, do it even more often. Okay, cool. As far as I'm aware, because I've tested this and I've never gotten it to work, so unless there's just something I don't understand about Mime, which, again, if that's the case, I put my hands up. I admit it. There's something I don't know, but as far as I understand, Mime cannot mimic arithmetics. Because if it could, that would be a problem. That would be a huge problem. I don't think it can, though. If it could, then I mean, it still probably wouldn't be above arithmetics, because you need to be able to cast the arithmetics in the first place to have the Mime copy it, even if it can copy it, which I don't think it can, so yeah, it would still stay below it. But I mean, that would make it even more ridiculous. As it is, it's still just busted stupid strong. So, very simple, very easy. And that makes a tier list. Is there anything that I want to move here? No, I don't think so. I don't think so, honestly. Does Chemist belong at the top of A? I think it... Maybe not the top of A. Just because having the ability to instantly, reliably heal, res, provide mana, whatever, is extremely strong, especially from range if you're playing it as a Chemist itself or have throw items on. But it's not going to be more potent, necessarily, than some of these other options. It is faster and more guaranteed than Dancer and Mystic, though. So I think it stays above them, but below Black Mage, Time Mage, and Samurai. That feels good. Knight. Arts of War, I would probably put below Aim and Bard Song, honestly. Because especially with Aim, like, you could just nuke something, and Bard Song is going to stack much more efficiently than Arts of War over the course of a map, in most cases. It can do it from range, hit multiple targets, so... That feels pretty good, though. That feels pretty good. I think everything else is in a good spot, so there you go! The Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles class or job ability tier list is complete. I feel very good about this, but how do you feel about it? I'm sure there's already been a lot of discussion in the comments as y'all have been watching this video and giving your opinions. Always the case. All that I ask is that you keep it polite, keep it respectful. So what I try to do with you guys until someone decides that they want to pop off and be a dickhead, and then I clap back real hard. And then people are like, whoa, whoa, I thought you were supposed to be all nice. I am. But I will also stick up for myself or for other people who are being bullied in the comments as well. So keep that in mind. Just, putting that out there. But do let me know what your thoughts are on this tier list. I feel pretty good about this. Maybe we'll revisit it in the future. If you want to see other versions of a tier list like this, maybe for the unique jobs and their specific skill sets, or if you want to see for, like, support skills, reaction skills, movement skills, whatever, I'd be happy to do all of that because I love talking FFT. It's always a good time, and you guys always enjoy seeing me talk FFT and get to join in that discussion. So, for now, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here, I think. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so very much for watching. Thank you to all of you who potentially choose to check out the Patreon and keep an eye on that going into the very near future. Lots of good stuff coming for that. Finally, I've been saying it for years, and I finally have a plan. Let's go. And of course, more than anything else, I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.